time, maybe they're celebrating Eid, are fitly free to enjoy, to go to all those places. So there's been really excitement. You can recall when we had Easter, we had Christmas, all these people were very, very excited because we had spent about 2 years when they would have these activities. So all I can say is there was so much merrymaking, though the business part of it, people will tell you that it had a bit of challenges. Things were not as they expected, I think, due to the high commodity prices, because I spoke to a few friends of mine, those that deal in various commodities, and they were telling you that, yes, there was low purchasing power. Even right from the abattoirs, they will tell you there was low purchasing power. But at the end of the day, people had something to celebrate with. And I want to believe that it's usually not about what you eat, but what is the purpose for that very day. Most of these public holidays that we get on our calendars that have a spiritual inclination or lineage, what is it all about? Is it the eating, or is it the essence of that day that makes the great thing? Although merrymaking must be part of it, but in case you didn't get what you wanted to have, still at the end of the day, you fasted the 40 days as directed by the Quran, and you're done, and of course you get that reward. But I don't know how Mollen managed through.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Robert. I did have invitations for sure, and I want to thank everyone that did invite me, because I got more than one, and it was hard to be in 2 places or 3 places at the same time. But you know, the one thing I realized, even for the one I went for, is that there was really a lot attached to the Eid celebrations. Now, also we do know that Muslim parties are actually one of the calm ones, because there are no beers, you know. These are the kind of parties you attend, and you know all you're going to have for drinks are sodas, water, juice. So everyone is just keeping calm, everyone is just cool. No, you know, when you have a party and people are drinking, you expect maybe there will be fights, or people will not be able to drive back home, and then you have to worry about, you know, taking them back home. But the kind of Eid celebrations that you have, you know, everyone is sober, unless they get drunk from the food, but they will be sober. So I think that's a good party to be at, and you know, the mood, you have family and kids around, it's just a good environment. And for me, that was really a big deal to be part of such a celebration. But also, Robert, you did bring out a good point. It's all about what you're celebrating, because we know that this has come at a time when a lot of people are you know, affected by the commodity prices. Not everyone was able to buy whatever they needed. So meaning that the tone was small in terms of purchasing you know, the items that could have made the parties more merrier. But again, I think as Ugandans, we've learned to cope with situations. We have struggled in this country. Sometimes you just have to work with what you have. And of course, the spirit that you put into celebrating that is what matters most. Because I'll tell you one thing, and Muslims have always been known for their pilau. And we know that even the rice prices have gone up, but the pilau will not miss. There are those things that will not miss on a menu celebrating Eid, and that's what we always count on. Even when you're asked to join them, you're like, hey, there is pilau, you know. So some of the items that, you know, are able to be purchased at this point, at least you get to celebrate. Because guess what? Even when the economy is struggling, you still get to, you know, have a good time, because we're still celebrating.
You've talked about celebrating, but did you also follow up some of the messages that these people had for others? I think for me, the greatest was that many of them were calling for unity. They're talking about unifying. Of course, they have had several attempts, considering everybody very important in this faith. But also, the call for them to remain the people they have been, even after the fast has come to an end. Now, this is where I find very interesting. When the Christians have the fast prior to Easter, messages will be, remain the person you have been, even through this holy period, the Lent period. When Muslims, they have finished their 40 days, still they're told, remain the people you have been in terms of character. But however, most of the times, this changes.
Well, you can hear from the gentleman over there and the lady who really have quite some opinions about what happened. But also today, Mollen and Robert, It is a day that concerns us. We're all journalists, and it is
Actually, the World Press Freedom Day. Now, quite a lot happens today, and a lot is celebrated. This year's theme is actually digital siege, but also this is just as a reminder for all the governments to respect their commitment that they make to the world press freedom or the freedom of the press. But again, as professionals, as journalists, also it's a day for us to be reminded, because once in a while you find yourself derailing off, and you need to be reminded about your integrity as a journalist, as somebody who builds the press, and also, you know, how professional you should be. Now, just to ask you, do you actually think that Uganda journalists have been able to, you know, hold up the mantle and show some professionalism while executing their duties? Maybe just to find out from you, Mollen.
Well, I do think that when you talk about freedom of press, there is a lot to it, and you can look into it in different contexts. But on the side of whether the press or journalists in Uganda have been, you know, observing their mandate or professionalism, I'd say yes, there has been that kind of observation. Except always there is going to be, you know, a few individuals that do not take it into professionalism. And I think what we've had, or what we've seen over time, is that mostly the digital media. And that has also come with the technologies of also going on social media. I think that's where we've had challenges with journalists that take it on social media. But if you look into at least most of the stations, right from just TVs and radios, people have observed, you know, that kind of professionalism. But also, I think most of the side that as we celebrate the World Press Freedom Day, we want to look into whether governments are actually making good on their promise, or even what is mandated under the UNESCO to protect the press. And I think that is where the challenge is, because we do feel like there hasn't been a lot done when it comes to protecting journalists in times where they actually need protection. Because we do know that the press are neutral people. Whether there is, you know, a war going on,
yes,
press is press. You're reporting on either side, so you should be this one person who is in the middle and respected by both sides. So when that is not, you know, considered as protection for the press, then that is where we have a challenge, and I think that's one thing that we should be looking into as well.
Actually, one way that was being fronted by UNESCO while celebrating this year's World Press Day is to actually support the journalists and the press in general, because they go through a lot while they're trying to execute their duties. And I will tell you, for example, COVID-19 really put the press to a test. We had very many media houses being put to a test. We had journalists. We had a couple of people who lost their lives, actually, to be very specific, some journalists. And I mean, there are very many scenarios that have put journalists in very compromising positions. Some have lost their lives, some have lost their, you know, career paths, all because of that. And also, just to take you about what is happening in Ukraine-Russian war, we have seen quite a number of journalists who have been able to, actually, who have lost their lives because of what is happening, all in the name of bringing the story to you. So yes, today being the World Press Day, we are celebrating all the journalists there doing what they are doing. Well, also to take you through some of the stories that did make it to the news desk yesterday, a lot did happen, and I'm pretty sure many of them did cover, especially about the Eid prayers, the celebrations, and of course there is also a lot that happened outside the Ugandan borders and also African borders. Starting off with some of the stories that did make it to the local desk, Robert.
And most of our cameras yesterday were following Muslims celebrating Eid al-Fitr were at Old Kampala. The Mufti and Sheikh Shaban Ramadan Mubaje led the prayers. The Muslim community in Uganda was challenged to embrace unity for peace, coexistence and development. Prime Minister Uganda Banja emphasized equal treatment by government for all people in Uganda, including Muslims, irrespective of their factions. She was speaking as the chief guest during Eid Day celebrations at Old Kampala Mosque, which also houses the headquarters of the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. As early as 6 a.m., Muslims were already there at Old Kampala Mosque to celebrate Eid Day. Prayers were led by the Mufti of the Republic of Uganda, Sheikh Shaban Ramadan Mubaje. Behind these prayers was a message of peace, not only in Uganda but across the world. Emphasizing the gospel of unity, Mubaje called for peaceful coexistence. It is in this similar manner the message by the Prime Minister Uganda Banja on behalf of government also attributed to unity. Reacting on concerns by some Muslims over a recent visit to Chibuli Muslim sect, Nabanja affirmed government's openness to all Ugandans, including Muslims. Nabanja also used the moment to explain rising commodity prices, urging Ugandans to adjust on their lifestyles. The Prime Minister's appearance as chief guest at Old Kampala Mosque comes a few weeks after a similar visit to Chibuli Muslim headquarters. This could be another phase towards brokering a truce between the two warring Muslim factions.
Well, still about Eid, now the traders in livestock that were destined to the city abattoir in Kampala for Eid al-Fitr slaughters have reported losses over registered few animals slaughtered and a low turn-up of customers. Eid al-Fitr is always celebrated by Muslims world over, not excluding those in Uganda, remembering the three-day Muslim festive marks the triumph end of the holy fasting month of Ramadan. As the fasting month of Ramadan ends, Muslims around the world celebrate Eid al-Fitr, the festive of breaking the fast. Now, Eid celebrations depend on when the new moon is sighted by the local religious authorities. Haji Sekweyama Mohammed, the city abattoir chairman, says few animals have been slaughtered compared to about 800 cows usually killed during such events, including Christmas, Easter festives, and Eid celebrations. Now, since the country is slowly recovering from COVID-19 challenges that included lockdown, stringent measures against the spread of the virus, these are still attributed to have affected the transportation of enough animals and the low turn-up of customers to the abattoir. On prices, those in authority say that the fewer number of slaughtered animals contributed to the increase in prices, with a kilogram of cow meat costing between 14,000 and 15,000 shillings from the 12,000 shillings at the abattoir. A kilogram of goat meat traded at 20,000 shillings from the usual 18,000 shillings. A kilogram of offals was selling at 5,000 shillings from an original reduction of 6,000 shillings. A kilogram of liver traded at 20,000 shillings from 18,000 shillings. Now, broilers were selling at 17,000 shillings from 15,000 shillings. Now, off layers were traded at 20,000 shillings from 18,000 shillings, although the weighed chicken in kilograms was at 12,000 shillings, while wholesale was at 13,000 shillings.
And away from the city abattoirs, now we move at Nakasero Mosque, where Umar Amil Mosque prayers were headed by Sheikh Yunus Kamoga, and who appealed to government and the judiciary to expedite justice for the suspected Muslims on account of terrorism activities and treasonable charges held in different detentions under trial in courts of law. Sheikh Kamoga made the statement at Nachivo Primary School during Eid al-Fitr sermon. Details also indicate that he called upon government to be considerate and ensure that justice is served and served timely. Thousands of Muslims thronged different places of worship to celebrate Eid al-Fitr, also known as Feast of Breaking the Fast. At Nachivo Blue, many were there, and their prayers were held on the basis of unity and ensuring justice for their brothers in various detention centers. Amir Umar Sheikh Yunus Kamoga preached unity but also emphasized Muslims to ensure that they work together for their development. At Masjid Nuru Busega, the minister of Kampala, Hajat Misa Kabanda, presented a bull to Muslims at the masjid to enjoy the festivity. Meanwhile, at Amil Sipida Foundation in Chisenyi, Sheikh Musa Serunjoji cautioned Muslims to keep up with the good deeds even after Ramadan. Sheikh Serunjoji asked government and concerned stakeholders not to raise prices of scholastic materials ahead of opening of school term. Eid al-Fitr is also known as the festival of breaking the fast. It is believed that Prophet Muhammad got the first revelation of the Holy Quran during the holy month of Ramadan.
Well, now in another story, we look at the Omorio County by-elections. Now, traditional leaders of Pulanga chiefdoms in Omorio district have blessed the NRM party flag bearer for Omorio County MP by-election, Ojok Andrew Olanya, the son of the former Speaker of the 11th Parliament, the late Jacob Olanya. Elders in Omorio County have blessed Ojok Andrew Olanya, the son of former Speaker, who is one of the candidates for Omorio County by-election, to accomplish the unfinished business of his late father. Speaking in the local dialect, the elders urge Ojok Andrew Olanya to always consult them while in Parliament. Now, Ojok Andrew described the elders' blessing as unforgettable experience of hope to success. The majority of the community members want Ojok Olanya to deliver on his promises like the late father rather than making empty promises. The elders here welcomed the ruling party decision to front late Olanya's son for the position of Omorio County MP seat, and also thanked other political parties like UPC and Democratic Party that opted not to front candidates. Much as the reception of the NRM party flag bearer for the by-election of Omorio County MP seat is good, George Aligap appealed to NRM party leadership to avail financial support for Ojok for the contested seat with NUP and FDC candidates. George says that the NRM should treat the Omorio County MP seat as a do-or-die mission to secure. Now, since FDC and NUP candidates on the ground are a force not to be underestimated.
Now, crossing over from Omorio to Russia. Well, in the international set this morning, Russia have been barred from competing in this summer's Women's Euro 2022, while Russian clubs will also be banned from UEFA competitions next season, says Europe's football governing body. UEFA has announced that Russia's bid to host the Men's Euro 2028 or Euro 2032 tournaments is now ineligible too. The sanctions come amid Russia's continued invasion of Ukraine. In February, Russian clubs and national teams were suspended by FIFA and UEFA until further notice. On Monday, UEFA announced that Portugal, who lost to Russia in the playoffs, will replace them at Euro 2022, which takes place in July. Russia's women's national team will also no longer compete in a European qualification for the 2023 World Cup, while the men's side is barred from the 2022-2023 Nations League. Now, they'll automatically be ranked fourth in Group 2 of League B, meaning they will be relegated at the end of the group phase. The ban imposed on clubs means there will be no Russian teams in the Men's and Women's Champions League, Europa League or Europa Conference League during the 2022-2023 campaign. And moving on to Israel, well, it is holding around 600 Palestinian detainees without charge or trial, the highest number since 2016, an Israel rights group said. Hamok, an Israel rights group that regularly gathers figures from prison authorities, said on Monday that as of May, there were 604 detainees held in administrative detention. Nearly all are Palestinians, as administrative detention is very rarely used against Jews. So-called administrative detainees are arrested on secret evidence, unaware of the accusations against them, and are not allowed to defend themselves in court. They are usually held for renewable 6-month periods that often lead to years in detention. While Israel says the procedure allows authorities to hold suspects while continuing to gather evidence, critics and rights groups say the system is widely abused and denies due process. Hamok said 2,441 Palestinians are currently serving sentences after being convicted in military courts. A further 1,478 detainees are being held for questioning, have been charged and are awaiting trial or are currently being tried. The Israel military did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the latest figures. And moving on to Ethiopian police, they used a tear gas to disperse young Muslims in Addis Ababa during prayers to mark the end of Ramadan in the capital. The incident occurred outside the International Stadium in the heart of the city, where prayers were scheduled to celebrate the Eid al-Fitr holiday at the end of the Muslim holy month. Unable to gain access because the stadium was full, some worshippers began to pray outside in Meskel Square. A member of the Addis Ababa High Council of Islamic Affairs told the AFP news agency that the cause of the confrontation was unclear. However, tensions have been high in the country after the deaths of at least 20 people last month in Gondar, a town in the northwestern region of Amhara, when Muslims were attacked by heavily armed extremist Christians, according to local Muslim groups. A policeman fired tear gas at the crowd, but it was unintentional, the official said, quoting volunteers at the site. The policeman was evacuated by other policemen, but people were shocked and some started to chant slogans. The situation became uncontrollable.
Well, now looking at weather and climate news, hundreds flee homes in the U.S. Southwest as massive wildfire advances. The wind-wiped flames raced across the pine-covered mountainside in the U.S. state of New Mexico on Monday, forcing residents to flee their homes and leading to the evacuation of the state's psychiatrist hospital. Hundreds of households in a historic city in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains were told to evacuate immediately as intense winds and bone-dry conditions fueled the huge wildfire burning on the outskirts of the city. The blaze, dubbed the Kenyena wildfire, has scorched more than 41,682 hectares, which is 102,998 acres, as of Monday morning, according to the United States Forest Service officials in New Mexico. It was 30% contained as of Monday, as it burned drought-parched vegetation northwest of the city of Las Vegas, home to 13,000 people. We are trying to house and feed people with skeleton crews. Hundreds of people have lost their homes. It is an extraordinary tragedy, said Alan Affeld, who owns a hotel in Las Vegas.
Well, this morning in the poll question, celebrating the World Press Freedom Day, and we know that it's a mandate for governments in several countries to make sure they are committed or they respect the commitment they make to the media and the press in general, and also for the press people to be able to observe and maintain their ethical profession conduct or even their integrity in this case. We want to find out from you, have press freedom rights or press freedoms been observed in Uganda? Have press freedoms been observed in Uganda? Make sure you do give us your feedback. Of course, we would definitely want to know what you're thinking about this and share it with the rest of the world. But also while you are at it, just to, give you some good motivation when it comes to your health, boosting your immunity. I'm pretty sure that Robert has more to say on this.
Definitely I do. Just remind our viewers that your health is your priority. And it is also relatively expensive. Those medical bills, well, you can forget them or reduce on your visits to, that is to the physician, by simply buying yourself, hallelujah, ginger tea or hallelujah, tamarind drink. Now, what these drinks do, they are not a treatment, but what they do is they greatly boost your immune system. So what they will do, at just 1,500, what you can hardly come by at the same time, they have gotten that for you, packed it in these bottles. So at your nearest retail shop, supermarket, just ask for hallelujah ginger tea or hallelujah tamarind drink, and I guarantee you, you will greatly save money that you're spending on treatment.
Well, for as long as you can save money and your health is in check, that is a win-win situation for you. We're getting into the inspiration for this Tuesday morning. When we get back, it will be the Good Morning Uganda News Reel. We'll be back.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Ginger Tea drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Even with my grandson, a doctor at my side, I struggled to get the help I needed. But he saw something that day. He began to work day and night. He wouldn't quit, even when people said no. He wouldn't stop fighting. He knew something had to change, and his vision was bigger than anyone could imagine. He made it possible to receive quality medical services anywhere in Uganda by simply using a phone.
This is a story of a regular Ugandan just like you, who harnessed the power of technology to provide a solution for us. How about you tell us your story? UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit airtel.co.ug/UG needs more of you or call or SMS 162. Airtel, the smartphone network.
In March 2018, Total Energies launched the Welders Training and Certification Program aimed at improving the employability of Ugandans from the Albertine region and East African crude oil pipeline areas.
GIZ E4D project is working with Total Energies, where we are targeting to train at the end of it 350 welders, and we're expected to train more.
I see myself working maybe in the oil and gas industry, being an international certified welder. Of course, I'll have acquired the skills.
I'm a lady, but doing something which is generally perceived to be for men. It makes you actually feel special. It makes you feel wow.
I am ready to support the oil and gas sector by being a quality welder. I thank you, Total, and I thank the government of Uganda.
Total Energies EP Uganda is committed to the empowerment of Ugandans to take an active part in the overall development of the oil project in Uganda.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
After the hour of 7 a.m. Good morning and thank you for joining us. Well, it is the Good Morning Uganda Newsreel segment today. My name is Philomena Mastiko and yes, I am joined by Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono. But before we get into the topic of discussion this morning, just to remind you of our poll question that is running on our social media platforms. Well, today is World Press Day and we are celebrating all the people in this profession and also just reminding governments to be able to respect the commitment they did make to the press in several respective countries. And this year's theme is definitely the under siege, digital siege to be very specific. And the poll question this morning is, have press freedom been observed in Uganda? Have press freedoms been observed in Uganda? Do share with us what you think about this and we'll be able to share it with the rest of the world. But this morning, Robert, our conversation is going to be rotating around the externalization of labor from Uganda here and to countries in the Middle East, but also, just to be very specific, in Saudi Arabia, where we have had very disturbing stories in the last couple of years. Now, because unemployment is quite such a vice in Uganda, and we've had a number of people go out there to seek job opportunities to be able to make some money. And like I have said, some of these companies that take the people out there have felt to be, to be giving us accountability of what is happening. We have seen, especially the girls, we've seen them complain how they're being trafficked and how they're being used for other things that are not the intention as to why they go to these other countries to be able to get all these employment opportunities. But also government in response to this has come out and they've said through the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, they have said they're going to come up with very strict regulations to make sure that everything is put into check. And they did say some of these raft of policies that they're going to be up are going to definitely hold some people accountable, some people responsible, to be able to make sure that everyone who leaves Uganda, they are safe. And also these regulations and policies should be able to protect our Ugandans even when they're not on Ugandan soils. Currently, apparently the number of Ugandans who are out there in Saudi Arabia looking for job opportunities, the statistics show that there are about 140,000 Ugandans. But again, just to get through it, why are we consistently seeing this even before the Ministry of Gender and Labour says that they're coming up with a new raft of very strict regulations and policies? Why is this happening consistently? Because we've had stories the last couple of years, even when government is doing some things to make sure that we don't hear all this monstrosity that is happening out there.
Well, thank you, Philo. That is a very interesting topic this moment for us to discuss, because we know that if you went to Entebbe Airport, they'll tell you that daily in Uganda, we have about 500 girls daily leaving Uganda for the Middle East on a daily basis. And these are between 21 years to about 28 years. So look at those people a month, how many are leaving this country. And the majority of these girls are going to work as domestic workers, codenamed Bakadama. So you look at the number that is very big, and we must ensure that these Ugandans are safe. Now you've asked, why is this rampant? Because if I may just take Ugandans back, there are certain things that they will remember very well. Just in October, last year, many remember the story of Judith Nyonyintono, who returned and purportedly, first there were not confirmed reports, but later police CID came out and confirmed that one of her kidneys was missing. Remember very well.
Yes.
Still, on the 20th of January, that was this year, a family in Mastiko was stranded. Their daughter died in Saudi Arabia and they were looking for means to bring her back. Yes. Plus a number of stories that we've had more. So one, even here in Uganda, domestic workers suffer a lot of challenges. But the difference is they are home. They can talk to their people. In case, that's why you find that some families, they'll tell you, bring a maid today. Tomorrow you wake up, the maid has gone. Then you hear she's at someone's place, another person's place. They'll tell you, my maid disappeared or something like that. So maids, because they're in homes, there are challenges. I wanted to first bring that even home here there are challenges. You find that a number of them are mistreated even on Ugandan soil. So given the nature of the domestic work they do and how they are confined in homes and how some families even in Uganda underlook these people, now that justifies that when they're on foreign soils, the situation is worsened.
Yes.
So that means that this is some sector that if there is externalization of labor in this direction, that our government then should give it critical planning and energies, looking at the vulnerability, that even if home they are vulnerable, then what happens when they're in the Arab world? They are more vulnerable, so we need proper rules to protect them, because we've seen that this is an area that has problems, because we have a lot of Ugandans in Saudi Arabia who are not domestic workers, and you can hardly hear anything about them. Those that work in factories, many of them are driving cabs, taxis. Many of them are in some hotels, but you don't hear the stories. We are hearing more regarding domestic workers. So that brings out first is because these are people that go, like I told you, they are young girls. There is no academic qualification that is required. The exposure is very less, even on internet or what, the power. And now what happens is we lack proper regulations that can compel Saudi Arabia. Why are we discussing Saudi Arabia in particular? Because for domestic workers, it is only Saudi Arabia where government of Uganda has a bilateral relation to export domestic workers. We once had with the Kingdom of Jordan, but that had issues and government halted it for a moment. So we are talking about Saudi Arabia because the only country in the Middle East where domestic workers are accepted. Now, government of Uganda in 2017 had a bilateral agreement with the government of Saudi Arabia. Remember, it was Honorable Janet Mukwaya, who was then the Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development. Yes. And of course, the Saudi government was represented. But the problem in this agreement was that much as it is a clear contract, there weren't clear rules of enforcing this contract. And one of the things that was decided was a joint technical committee to be set up. I want to tell you, even on between the 23rd and 28th of this very year, our Honorable Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Betty Amongi, traveled to Saudi Arabia because of these cases. And one thing they discovered was lack of this committee.
Yes.
Government of Uganda has not availed funds. They'll tell you that this committee would solve a number of issues, but would not have funds. Government of Uganda doesn't have attaches. They're relying on companies that you have a Ugandan based in the country of destination, Saudi Arabia. So this Ugandan, his role or her role is to receive these complaints, follow them up with the concerned authority. Now we need this one that is set by the Ugandan government. What we have are these export companies that have been told, put someone there. Now you know our issues of Uganda. It's not about ability.
Yes.
You're putting someone there because they can speak Arabic. Maybe. Some even don't speak Arabic. So this person, apart from reporting to their bosses, whose bosses, if they're not well positioned, they cannot form meaningful reaction to the government of Saudi Arabia. So this committee not being there or effectively functioning is a problem. Because what happens, Philo, when these jobs are advertised there in Saudi Arabia, these companies get these jobs. Now the companies here home in this business pick these job orders. They advertise here in Uganda. The girls go. But what happens is when this company delivers the young lady to the company in Saudi Arabia, its powers may not be so much. That's why we have the name sponsor. The person who is going to employ this girl finally is referred to as the sponsor.
Yes.
Because they sponsor the ticket, they pay the visa fee, they pay pre-medical. There's some much that they invest. So they are called sponsors. Now this young girl is coming to this home. Now what has been lacking is that this sponsor, to what extent can the government of Uganda compel the government of Saudi Arabia to take action in case of mistreatment? Now this girl has been calling the company in Saudi Arabia first and tell them, you know, this is what I'm going through, what I'm going, this. If all is not working, then call the company in Uganda, where she came from, that this is what I'm going through. Now, the role of the technical committee would be a person, a representative of Ugandan government. You know, when a government authority is speaking to authority in another country, they better listen. What is happening? This company, some few, have representatives there. So they make sure they follow up with this girl, then call home, then this company has, if the worst comes to the worst, the company has to call Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, then the ministry there, the commissioner in charge there, they have to follow up with police, because we've not, I think, prioritized funds to have this committee, to have those attaches based in this area where we have these girls. So as long as that is not done, things are followed lightly. Then another problem why we still have this issue is when you look at these contracts, because they're on the internet, there's a system called Mosanet.
Yes.
It's between the government of Uganda and the government of Saudi Arabia. This contract lasts for 2 years. And this has been the problem. That's why Honorable Betty Among, this time I think she has got it right, when she said they are going to compel these companies to ensure they are responsible for returning these workers when their contract ends. This is what has been happening. When a contract of 2 years comes to an end, this young lady is supposed to return home. It is a must in the contract. You return home because you cease to be known there as a worker. So the bosses, upon the expiration of the contract, they have been sweet-talking these young girls and tell them, we've worked with you very well. Now, maybe the contract has ended, but you can stay. Remember, the kingdom of Saudi Arabia knows that this person's time to be there ended. So we found that this young girl stays there because these companies were not concerned. For them, their role is they got in the money, they took you there. Have you worked 2 years smoothly? Have they ended? And remember, under these 2 years, that is only when you're known as a migrant worker in Saudi Arabia. That is when even this little enforcement can work, because there is a binding document. When that contract expires, the government of Saudi Arabia no longer, nor the government of Uganda, no longer value you as a Ugandan in that country because your contract expired. So now this extension, this is where these workers now know that you no longer have rights. The young girl is happy, I'm going to be getting more money. That's when you see torture. You see violation of human rights. That is when these employers now change, because they know there's nothing attaching to them of responsibility.
Now, well, looking at the new policies, the new very, very tough policies that are being fronted, or at least that are going to be put into play by the Ministry of Gender and Labour, you actually already talked about one of them. Government wants to charge responsibility to all these labour companies to be able to bring back these migrant workers back home. And also another that they were really fronting was to make sure that they follow the contracts that they sign. Like you said, some of these workers don't even know what is entailed in their contracts. If you're supposed to be there for 2 years, strictly 2 years, you should be able to come back home or renew your renew your contracts. Now, this is what happens. They are charged because of overstaying their visit. You know, they're charged about 20 million, 30 million. You know, this is what the Ministry of Gender was talking about. And also looking at, again, how some of them are trafficked into the country as visitors. Then they are trafficked and sold off to other third parties who are not in the initial contract. Again, this is where you see cases of, violation of human rights, because this person is not accountable to anyone. Now, all these new regulations that have been put into play, how are they going to solve these how are they going to be a solution to these problems?
I'll begin with ensuring that when the contract is ended,
yes,
the company that took this girl ensures she returns home. This is going to solve the overstay period. 1. 2, when this person comes home, if they are to go back, they go through the same process that somehow protects them. So when they stay there, the protection is completely away from them. They're in the hands of the person who has employed them under no terms, under their own terms. Because the girl knows, if I escape, where am I going to report? She can't call the company that took her because she knows her contract ended. So they have no responsibility of her. But now if she's going to be brought back home, go back on another contract with stipulated guidelines where the government and the company can hold someone accountable. That is something I feel is going to solve this problem. Because when you look at most of these stories we've gotten, they'll tell you, I went with such a company. The company will tell you her contract ended with us. When it ended, she discussed with the person who was employing her, and she stayed there on her own. So there's nothing. We are not now
we can't be held accountable.
We can't be held accountable because if it happened during our contract. So that is going to be sorted. Second, ensuring that they comply with the set contracts, the terms and conditions. This I find a bit hard. Why? The way this business is being done, it is not Ugandan companies that are taking these girls, that are offering them the employment. That these Ugandan companies went and sought jobs. These Ugandan companies, I'm sorry they may not like this word, but they are merely brokers. But broker. That they get jobs there, they come pick Ugandans.
They are the middlemen, basically.
They are middlemen.
Yes.
Like you're looking for a house. Someone who knows where the house is, that person delivers you to the landlord, gets his commission.
Yes.
However, there is a contract where they sign. But the challenge has been, to what extent does a mere company, maybe Kirabo and Philo Export, whatever company, to what extent can we compel the other government that in such and such a house, there is a young lady that our partners, the company, delivered, and her health is not doing well. She's being denied food, she's being denied medical, and she's sick. Are we speaking to a government? Or are we also, you see them also bargaining now? These companies, they just tell the girl, now what we are going to do, we are going to change. You give us about 3 months, take you to another person. You get it? Because they don't have a legal mandate. Like if we had the technical committee. So, Honorable Minister, the best solution here should be have this technical committee. Because it was this committee, if it's very functional, that is going to be a mediator. That maybe you have a commissioner based there.
Yes.
2, 3. This is an official. That official based in that country. That he can speak to his comrades. They can even access the premises of that girl and find out. But when you look at a company like Kirabo and Philo, labor export company, and maybe you have your cousin or my cousin based in Saudi Arabia, who we are telling that now you go to the home of that person, tell them there is a girl being mistreated here, or tell them to stick to the contract. It's hard. It's a long procedure. And because of this lengthy period, that is when you hear a girl reached a time and she could no longer stomach what was happening. She chose to escape, run out of the home where she was put. And when she runs out of this home, it is disaster. She's on the streets, police may pick her, other people may traffic her, tell her, yes, we are Ugandans, you're running. When they're there, they find all on internet groups that will tell them you're being mistreated. Can we find you at such a place? Where are you? She jumps over the wall, then runs. All these. Because the process of holding people accountable and causing reform is tedious, is a bit long, and cannot be done successfully by agents of these companies.
Well, have a functional technical team on both grounds to make sure accountability is being given by all these labor export companies. Now, this is what I picked from you, Robert, and I think it would be very, very effective. And have people return back home safe and sound. You don't want to be in a scenario where you have a family member who is there in Saudi Arabia, but you're worried you do not know their fate. I think at the end of the day, everybody deserves to be very happy, even while they are executing their responsibilities and being able to do their jobs, whether they're at home or not. I think human rights are very, very crucial, and they're being fronted by everybody. So we deserve all these human rights, depending, or it doesn't even depend, everybody as a human being. Well, just to remind you of our poll question that is running this morning, and that is, has press freedom been observed in Uganda? Has press freedom been observed in Uganda? It's running up there on our Twitter. Make sure that you engage and share with us what you actually think about this. Obviously, I'll be getting into your feedback and to share it with the rest of our Good Morning Uganda family. For now, we're getting into the papers to see what made the headlines: The New Vision, Daily Monitor, and Daily Nation. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
In preparation for the parliamentary and local government councils by-elections in Omorio County, Omorio District, the Electoral Commission will conduct a display of the National Voters Register for Omorio County constituency. The public display of the voters register will be conducted at each polling station within Omorio County from Monday the 25th of April to 4th of May 2022, starting at 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. on each of the appointed dates, including weekends. The purpose of the display exercise is to enable voters to check for the correctness of their particulars, to confirm that photographs appear against correct particulars, to report to the display officer the following categories of persons: those who have died, the non-citizens, if any, those who are under 18 years of age, if any, and those who belong to another parish. Please note that there will also be a display of lists of persons recommended for deletion from the voters register for a period of 6 days from the 5th of May to the 10th of May 2022. The purpose of this supplementary display is to enable any person who may have been wrongly recommended for deletion to raise an objection to the parish tribunal. The parish or ward tribunal may reinstate the person if convinced of the genuineness of an objection.
Even with my grandson, a doctor at my side, I struggled to get the help I needed. But he saw something that day. He began to work day and night. He wouldn't quit, even when people said no. He wouldn't stop fighting. He knew something had to change, and his vision was bigger than anyone could imagine. He made it possible to receive quality medical services anywhere in Uganda by simply using a phone.
This is a story of a regular Ugandan just like you, who harnessed the power of technology to provide a solution for us. How about you tell us your story? UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit airtel.co.ug/UG needs more of you, or call or SMS 162.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Taking a look at the Daily Monitor first, the big headline over there. To fight COVID-19, even after billions of shillings was made available by the Treasury. The details, you can find them on page 4 of the Daily Monitor. And looking at the Eid al-Fitr celebrations that happened. Picture over there showing Muslims during their prayers, and of course high food prices dampen Eid celebrations mood. The story is over there on pages 5 and 6 and 7 respectively. Now in more news, a widow, why I beat up priest at burial of my husband. This story has been trending, and of course you will catch the details of it in the Daily Monitor this morning. And taking a look at the Prosper pullout, inflation in times of high debt, government's tough balancing act. Well, moving on to the second page of the Daily Monitor. From the archive section, we look at the Zimbabwean then President Robert Mugabe being welcomed by former Vice President of Uganda Gilbert Bukenya at Entebbe Airport to attend the swearing-in ceremony of President Museveni. This was on the May 11th, 2006. And still taking you back in time, today in history, Babiha sworn in as Uganda's Vice President. And again, Supreme Court broadens civil rights laws in the U.S. And government urged to include environment in COVID recovery. But also we have some headlines in the New Vision this morning.
Well, in the New Vision this morning, more people qualify for midterm access. Now 88,000 more to get NSSF savings after amendment. And, there is much of good news right there. That is on page 6 of the New Vision for this morning. But the New Vision also, Africa can help solve the energy crisis. Who is saying that? President Museveni right there. And the full story is on page 15 of the New Vision for this morning. How Uganda came up with the Gomesi. Well, that's a tradition right there, fronting the picture of the Nabagerika of Buganda. The story is on page 24 of the New Vision for this morning. Now, there is a big picture right there showing the Muslims as they celebrated Eid al-Fitr. Now, showing you, of course, the Mufti of Uganda, Sheikh Shaban Mubaji, right there, posing with the Prime Minister, Robina Nabanja, wearing a yellow veil right there. A very beautiful picture, but also there is much more to that story on page 4, 5, and more of the New Vision for this morning. But also in the New Vision, Timango takes 420 teenage mothers to school. Well, that's a very big story right there, but it is on page 35 of the New Vision. You can get more into that. Teachers warned against drinking. Well, the Education Minister has cautioned the newly promoted head teachers against corruption and alcoholism. Well, that is a much needed advice right there coming through, but there is more to that story on page 11 of the New Vision for this morning. Now, page 2 also showing you how to earn money from government securities. Oh, that is interesting. URA boss toughens on the rental income tax. Now, there is much more to that and how it will affect you if you're renting. But there is more in that story on the page 2 of the New Vision for this morning. Now, today in history, they show you 3rd May 2010 when the new currency notes were unveiled from Bank of Uganda. That's when we started in the 10,000, 20,000 and the 50,000. Well, a very interesting day indeed to remember. Now, 3rd of May 1802, Washington, D.C. becomes city. Wow, that is also right there. But there is also much more on belated birthday celebrations of the Commander of Land Forces, Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, right there cutting cake. Get yourself a copy of the New Vision and you will get much more of those stories. The controversy over coffee deal, as the experts are now giving a way forward, is also right in there.
Moving on to the Daily Monitor Sports, taking a look at the UEFA Champions League. Reds out to finish off Villarreal. Liverpool take a 2-0 advantage to Spain, hoping to avoid an upset in the Champions League final. And Busoga, Villa push police to the brink. and of course quite interesting there. And still looking at how Uganda, the under-12 boys won the East Africa tennis gold, and of course the championship in Kigali, Rwanda, of course was indecisive style, dropping just one set in the entire tournament. So you can get the full story in the Daily Monitor. But also Rockets City Lions continue to prevail over tired veterans, and still more detailed story of how the boys were able to, top Rwanda for the tennis gold, and Oro got unfazed after wind aided 20.15. And the Triumphant Yakan come in to talk about how they were able to walk down the road of victory. And they say we were hungry for the title. Which title? Well, grab yourself the Daily Monitor this morning to catch up on the story.
Well, and in the New Vision Sports, they are leading off with the Rockies right there. And they're saying Rockies dare to dream big. They give you a picture of Mike Mukula Jr. with Mark Lubega, who are ready to take on the Pearl of Africa, Uganda. Thrown at them. They're ready for that tournament, and already showing you a picture as well of Ronald Sebuguzi, Dr. Ashraf Ahmed, as they are getting prepared for the Pearl of Africa Championship. Well, what is in there, what to expect, we already know that some of the foreign crews have already started arriving. Who is already in the country, get yourself a copy of the New Vision and you'll get much more of that. But also, they're giving you what is the criteria, the real criteria, as the National Council of Sports has been unable to address the national team selection. The wrangles between their local federations and the athletes, but also the coaches, get much more of that story, as it is also being attributed to the Uganda Table Tennis Association in the New Vision Sport for today. But they also show you a picture of the week, and a very interesting one of Sylvia Nachejwe, and doing gymnastics as a sport that is being promoted right now. Much more of that in the New Vision Sport for this morning. Shillings 170 million to the women's soccer. Well, they show you the FUFA President Magogo as he was handing over some of the to the UWFA chairperson Margaret Kubinji. Right there, there is much more to that story. Captain's bell will to start ringing on May 5th. Well, they also give you, a little bit of a glimpse of what is happening in the Uganda Golf Club.
And onto the Daily Nation, the big headline over there: 6 petitions seek to block Raila Ruto from the ballot. Well, the argument in court, and very, very interesting text. Well, make sure you get the copy and to see who is winning or what. And still, they are also being part of the Eid celebrations, just like the rest of the world. And of course, the calls were for peace as Ramadan ends, and the Muslim preachers, of course, were able to, call on a clarion to all promote peaceful coexistence and national harmony, which seems to have been the topic all over the place. Now, also looking at mistrust of digital land transfers delays reforms, and that is a conveyancing game changer by the Lands Ministry, now on the rocks back in Kenya. And they still take you to the health beat, where they look at the tech promise and optimism amidst setbacks as rural patients access specialized care in the telemedicine centers. And also global athletics stars line up for Keep Kano Classic. All that in the Daily Nation this morning. You can grab yourself a copy at 2,700 Ugandan shillings to catch up on all these stories, as also you put into note that they are into the election race, and anytime now we'll be seeing who the new president is going to be. Well, also just to remind you of our poll question this morning, definitely we want to find out from you if the press freedom has been observed in Uganda. Has press freedom been observed in Uganda? The hashtag is UBCGMU, and of course the WhatsApp number is 0709 602 You can send us an SMS text and we'll definitely be able to get back to you. Well, when it comes to the traffic updates this morning, well, you need to be a little bit more wary because today is a Tuesday. Yesterday was a public holiday. We didn't have a lot of activity happening in Kampala, meaning that today being a Tuesday, we could probably count it as a Monday. So yes, the roads are expected to be very, very busy. We have very many pedestrians on the road. We have very many cyclists. We have very many public transport means. Even when the fuel prices are high, people are still trying to find their way to town and maneuver their way to town. So you need to be a little bit more wary of that and also be able to, start off your journey as early as you can to be able to make sure you catch up on your appointments. Well, also coming in from the climate, we have a lot happening in the climate and weather forecast. Mollen, today seems to be, I am not a meteorologist, I don't want to be a weather prophetess, but I don't know why I think it's going to be shining very seriously today. Am I right? Are my predictions really on the right side? Or I'm just dreaming, or I'm talking about what I would really want to see today?
Well, I will tell you one good news right now. It's that we already still see mostly cloudy weather, a little bit of sun coming through, and that is good news. But that is not going to last the whole day. Of course, there are rains in the forecast, and we'll be going through that. But if you're anywhere around Kampala, it's just a very pleasant morning for you. We just missed a rainy system by a small, chance like this. But for now, you can enjoy the weather. It seems like the morning is pretty going to be quite clear.
Well, the farmers are actually still asking for more rains because they said the rains haven't been enough for them to get back into the system, to start the planting. It hasn't really lasted for as long as they wanted it to. So if you're a farmer, clearly we understand where you're coming from because they need more rains. These, as we are complaining right here in Kampala and other regions of how the rain is becoming too much and very unnecessary and seeing floods in certain parts of the road, the farmers out there are actually asking for more rains, from God or, whether the science that Mollen is talking about or she's always preaching about. They want the rains to come in to be able to complete their planting season without coming across any hindrances. I don't know how that is going to turn out for them, but I am hoping that for them, the rains stretch it all the way throughout the entire month of, May. Yes. I don't know whether that will be happening, but I pray it does happen because at the end of the day, we know Uganda relies so much on agriculture. We need the food. We need the farmers to be very active. Yes. Therefore, we need the rains. Well, I will leave you to Mollen to give you more of the climate information and the news and also be giving us the weather forecast in several parts of the country, whether it will be raining, whether it will be shining. Well, you can always prepare accordingly. That's it from me this morning. I am Philomena Mastiko.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. But looking into what the rainy situation is like right now, we do know that, the beginning of May usually ushers in the peak of the rainy season. We are talking about our first major rainy season, which is the March to May rainy season over Uganda. Now, we do know that most of these rains will actually start to reduce as we head into June, because those are really dry months. But for now, our rainy season is still on, and most of the areas have also been picking up. I'll give you an example of northern Uganda. We've seen more rains in the last couple of days across northern Uganda, like, we haven't had such consecutive days of rains across the area. So at least that is some good news. And also we've seen more pickup of wet weather activities across areas of eastern Uganda, as well as, areas within parts of, the Choga region. That has been at least a good increment in terms of wet weather activities. We're still continuing with those rains, and we'll be expecting more pickup in wet weather activities, especially across western Uganda. And even today, most areas are likely to have much more of those rains. We do expect quite a continuation for the next couple of days as well, but we'll be getting into the forecast later on. First, let's take a look at what is making headlines across the weather and climate news. Now, we are following up on that story that we did even read to you earlier today about the wildfires in New Mexico. What we do know right now is that this has, also now encroached on the historical city of Las Vegas. And so far, evacuations have been done where hundreds of households in this historical city of New Mexico, that is Las Vegas, were told to evacuate on Monday as fierce winds were also fueling into, the already drought area that has pushed the largest active wildfire in the United States close to the town. Now, at least for the first time, we're seeing that this has been put to record, as you know, this area has not had this kind of wildfires. You know, usually this month is actually a wildfire month across southern, the southwest of USA, and we have had wildfires across New Mexico before. But what is different about this time is that this is taking on more and more land, because so far we do know that more than 100,000 acres of land have been covered by this wildfire, and we do know that, you know, this city of Las Vegas that is housing at least 13,000 people is now on threat of being also, you know, covered by this fire that has been dubbed the Gulf Kenyan. Now, it looks like the peak is increasing because the area has been going through a drought for quite some time. So that means that temperatures are already high, and that is only also fueling into the wildfires over there. What we do know is that at least 30% has been contained, according to local authorities, but 70%, of course, leaving out that fire to spread. Now, there has been, you know, more of the evacuation plans to make sure that at least the people that are living in the communities right there have been evacuated immediately. Now, that stretched from Saturday, Sunday, and yesterday there were also more evacuations being done, and now they're encroaching on Las Vegas, asking more people to evacuate the city, as these fires are likely to continue, because still the forecasts are from the meteorological centers over, you know, New Mexico are indicating that we could be looking at more drought days. So that means that with the blazing wind now coming through, then this fire could actually make it to, such huge record levels. But we do know that local authorities are on that, and all that is stretching from the fact that there has been a prolonged drought over the area, and obviously also being related to the climate variations within, New Mexico that has been there, which is what has pushed us into the record. Now, what is also pushing into the record is the increasing temperatures in India. Now, India has seen, for the first time after, a lot of years, record levels of temperatures, and this has triggered heat wave related illnesses across the area. Now, what we do know is that at least temperatures have risen to 40 degrees Celsius, and this is something that has not been seen in New York since 122 years to be exact. That is coming in from the meteorologists at the Indian Meteorological Agency. Now, according to the records that we have so far, now last month, India, that is part of New Delhi, saw consecutive days of over 40 degrees Celsius and 3 degrees above the average temperatures for the month of April. And as if that was not enough, because that has now also continued into May, where we're still looking at more temperatures rising. And of course, that has been associated with a heat wave, where it is posing a lot of health risks across parts of India and Pakistan as well. Mostly New Delhi, that has already recorded high numbers of temperatures. What is in record also is the southeastern part of the Sindh province, which recorded a high of 47 degrees Celsius on Friday. That is according to the data that was shared by the Pakistan Meteorological Department. And this is the highest temperature recorded in the city in the northern hemisphere for that day. Now, that is also still going into the records after 122 years, where temperatures by then were actually 35 degrees Celsius. And that has only now shoot 5 degrees higher than what was in records. And scientists are already saying that this is something that has not been seen, and of course being blamed on the fact that temperatures are rising globally, and of course bringing in the aspect of the climate crisis that has been happening. And India has been at the forefront of having most of these disasters that are climate related, from the floods to the landslides, and now dealing with a heat wave. There has been a lot of changes within the weather over the area, and also we do know that India has vulnerable communities, and these are the ones that are being affected mostly when it comes to extreme weather events. But these extreme weather events are not happening just, far away from us. We do have the flood events that have been happening most, especially across the southwestern parts of the country. We have seen mostly areas of Kasese, we have seen Toroko, we have seen areas across Ntungamo, most of the areas that have been affected by the floods across, this rainy season ever since we started March to May. And so far what we do know is that residents are now coming up to ask for help, because with the strains coming in from the vulnerability that is related to, losing some of the, infrastructure over there, but also the agriculture has not been performing, especially for areas of Kasese. Now, the flood victims actually, especially in the areas of Mohocha, that is the camp in Kasese, have come out to ask government to help them out, as they have not been able to do a lot with the heavy rains, on the verge of destroying everything they have had. Now, this, especially Mohocha, is, close to the mountains. So that means that even the running water from the mountains, they keep coming towards the area, and that has, created more of the flash flooding, whereby now people are saying we are vulnerable and we need government to intervene. We did see the Prime Minister Nabanja actually, who went there, and she did promise that, government was willing to intervene and look into how to help people that are in flood-prone areas. And Kasese has been one of the hotspots for flooding here in Uganda. And we do know that also areas like districts of Ntoroko and Macho, southwestern Uganda, has been dealing with most of these extreme weather events. Now, obviously, we need the government intervention, but also there needs to be more of action regarding into climate action to make sure that some of these extreme events are not at the frequency they are at. Yes, we have had flooding before, but the fact that this is just rising every rainy season, we are getting much more of, the flooding, the landslides across the area. It shows you that the frequency is only going high. So I do know that we do have climate experts in the country, and we do have a Minister of Water and Environment on the lead to actually get the scientists to analyze some of these situations. And advices have been done, there are policies that have been done on what can be done. But how about now we go into the adaptation part? How can people in Kasese, or even all of those areas that are prone to flooding, cope up with the changing weather? Because it's not like the curve is going down. All the analysis that we've been doing, all the reports that we have been giving you are just indicating that these temperatures are rising. Extreme weather is rising on the same, line. So that means that we need to find a way to cope with what is happening. So if residents, for example, in those areas in Kasese are saying we can no longer cope up, we can no longer, have a life when we are dealing with this extreme weather, then there is also a need for government to intervene and make sure that these people, accept the situation, and maybe even relocations are done, or maybe more can be done in making sure we safeguard the rivers that usually burst their banks. We do know that River Nyamamba has been one of those rivers that have caused a lot of chaos across Kasese, because whenever it rains, it just weakens the river banks, and in the end, you know that what is going to happen after that, it's going to be flooding. So there is need to focus on that and have more monies there. But I do know that there's a lot of effort geared towards making sure that most of the flood-prone areas are put into, clear places where people can actually, make sure that they're surviving even when they're in those areas. But also more evacuations need to be in plan as we look at strategic planning when it comes to extreme weather events. Well, away from that, we also want to take a look into the weather that's happening across the country. For today, we'll be tapping in from our satellites over Uganda for this morning. Now, it looks like we do have mostly sunny weather that is across most areas within the country, but we did have that rainy system that started off earlier. That is, as we were looking into, at least an hour back, we have that rainy system that started off across Lake Victoria, where you see the dark red to yellow and blue colors. That is over Lake Victoria. That is where we did have those rains. But that is the system that actually missed Kampala, bringing us just cloudy conditions. But it looks like the western area of Lake Victoria Basin did not miss up on those rains. Parts of Masaka already having much of those rains, and that system looks like it is moving westwards, and that means it will be spreading, bringing more rains across the western area of Lake Victoria for this morning. But elsewhere, it looks like we started off with mostly, sunny skies. Now temperatures are also quite a bit warm compared to what we were dealing with today. It's quite a pleasant day to start off with, but we'll go ahead and take a look into a forecast for this morning and see what we have also in terms of numbers, and that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. We take a look at what weather that we are expecting, but most of those systems actually will be developing later in the afternoon, most especially across the western part of the country. We start off with the eastern part of Central, where we have Luwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke. We're forecasting isolated showers. That is starting off with a warm 27 degrees centigrade, but also we do expect that system to continue into the afternoon, where we might still be dealing with those rains. Now looking at the central part of Lake Victoria, where we have Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso and Mukono, we're forecasting those rains, starting off with quite a cool 24 degrees centigrade, and we do expect those rains to cross over into the afternoon, but those will also be over a few areas. Well, we do know that at least most of those rains are expected later on in the afternoon, and we could be looking at especially the western stretch of the country having more pickup in wet weather activities, but also some of the areas within the Choga region and parts of Central. We do expect to have those rains to continue into the afternoon. Now, looking into the eastern part of Lake Victoria, we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja. We're forecasting isolated showers starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, and also that system will be clearing as we head into the afternoon. We could be looking at more of the sunny intervals. That is as we look into the afternoon over the area. Southwestern Uganda, Mbarara, Ibanda, Bushenyi and Rubirizi, we're forecasting sunny intervals starting off with mostly sunny skies for this morning, and temperatures are at a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. Well, it's a good weather to start up with, but I'll tell you one thing, later in the afternoon we do expect rains to develop over the southwestern part of the country. Now, crossing over to Mount Elgon Highlands, we do have Mbali, Bududa, Buko and Sironko. We're forecasting isolated showers. Looks like temperatures are starting off cool as well at 25 degrees centigrade, but also that system will continue into the afternoon. We're going to be dealing with much more of those rains later as we head towards the evening. Now, the western side of Lake Victoria already dealing with some of those rains as we speak across parts of Masaka. Now, we do expect more rains to develop across Kalisizo, Sembabule and Rakai. We do expect temperatures to start off with a warm 24 degrees centigrade for that area, but also we will be having that rainy system still in the afternoon, so temperatures are most likely to remain quite low for much of the day over there. The central part of northern Uganda, where we do have Gulu, Kitgum, Padel and Jumani, we're forecasting isolated showers. Most of those will be developing as we head towards the afternoon, and more rains are expected in the afternoon over the area. Temperatures will be starting off at 27 degrees centigrade, and most likely we'll be getting to 29 later as the evening progresses. Now, it looks like most of the areas actually across northern Uganda have started to pick up more when it comes to wet weather activities, and at least that is good news because that area has been dry. But we also do know that most of the rains across the northern sector will even be coming through as we head into June, July, but we'll be giving more of those details, especially when the forecast does come out from the East African Prediction Center. Well, I'll leave you at that. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up, and later we'll also be giving you sports highlights. But you know, you can catch us live even if you're living home. We're streaming live on YouTube, that is UBC Television Uganda, and across our social media platforms. The hashtag is hashtag UBCGMU. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a lovely morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go. MTN.
In preparation for the parliamentary and local government councils by-elections in Omorio County, Omorio District, the Electoral Commission will conduct a display of the National Voters Register for Omorio County constituency. The public display of the Voters Register will be conducted at each polling station within Omorio County from Monday the 25th of April to 4th of May 2022, starting at 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. on each of the appointed dates, including weekends. The purpose of the display exercise is to enable voters to check for the correctness of their particulars, to confirm that photographs appear against correct particulars, to report to the display officer the following categories of persons: those who have died, the non-citizens, if any, those who are under 18 years of age, if any, and those who belong to another parish. Please note that there will also be a display of lists of persons recommended for deletion from the voters register for a period of 6 days from the 5th of May to the 10th of May 2022. The purpose of this supplementary display is to enable any person who may have been wrongly recommended for deletion to raise an objection to the parish tribunal. The parish or ward tribunal may reinstate the person if convinced of the genuineness of an objection.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Coming soon on UBC.
Hey, it's time to play. We're glad you came because we love to share. Come. Let's have some fun. With everyone. Because we love to learn together, making new friends forever. We Sesame Street friends.
Even with my grandson, a doctor at my side, I struggled to get the help I needed. But he saw something that day. He began to work day and night. He wouldn't quit, even when people said no. He wouldn't stop fighting. He knew something had to change, and his vision was bigger than anyone could imagine. He made it possible to receive quality medical services anywhere in Uganda by simply using a phone.
This is a story of a regular Ugandan just like you, who harnessed the power of technology to provide a solution for us. How about you tell us your story? UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit airtel.co.ug/UG needs more of you or call or SMS 162.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to the hour of 8. Thank you so much for keeping it with us here on UBC TV. It is a sunny morning and of course a break from those rainy mornings we've had. I'm just hoping you're already set for your workplace away from the long holiday that we had while we were celebrating Eid al-Fitr. I'm just sure you're up and energetic to face yet this week that fairly has begun on a Tuesday. Once again, I'm Kirabo Nyonyintono, and welcome to the Good Morning Uganda agenda, where today we are going to be handling a very interesting topic. Why do I call it interesting? Because it is something that totally concerns me, the person before you, and many in this fraternity and profession. That is World Press Freedom Day. Now, World Press Freedom Day was gazetted by the United Nations, to be more specific, under UNESCO, as a day every 3rd of this very month that we will celebrate this day. 1, to look at the fundamental principles of press freedom, to remind states on their commitment towards press freedom, but also to remember, to commemorate the lives of our brothers and sisters who have died in the line of duty. We thank God in Uganda, we've not had many of these incidents. And even in the recent past, we had elections, but we didn't see any loser life. Of course, we've had our friends like the likes of Robert Kagolo, who remember on the 1st actually, May he was buried. That was one of us. We have the likes of, Sumidi Sudiam, who was also a foreign journalist working in Uganda with the Saturday Guardian in northern Uganda, also doing a couple of work, but all these have not died in the line of duty. Now, joining me to discuss this is Ivan Kahwa, one of our own from the newsroom. Ivan, how have you been?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Good morning. I must say I love your blazer. You're a field man, but I don't think you're dressed for the field today. Maybe you're dressed for the celebrations.
It's part of the field as well. Yeah, depending on the field you do reporting, so it dictates how you have to wear.
Now, this year's theme is very interesting because it is journalism under digital siege. Of course, we know previously you had the traditional media.
Yeah.
You had radio, TV. Then the newspapers, a few tabloids. That is what we had. But of late, here comes social media, where everyone is a professional journalist. Everyone can capture, can write 2 or 3 sentences, can claim to be a journalist. This brings me to the question, who is a journalist? Because as we celebrate World Press Freedom Day, we are looking at a journalist. Who is a journalist, in your opinion?
I think everyone has tried to define journalism depending on what they want to achieve, you know, and sometimes you can't do anything about it, because if anyone woke up in the morning and said, I'm a journalist because I gather videos and then I give them to a news outlet and I'm given money. At that point of view, if you're collecting news, that's why we define some as citizen journalists, you know, in that regard. They're also catered for. So it depends on what really in that regard you mean. But when you look at professional journalism, these are people who write for magazines, TVs, radios, and name it. Those are the professional journalists we're talking about. Kirabo, even in your home, your mother used to prescribe some medicine when you're sick, but it doesn't make them medical doctors or personnel. So same applies to journalism, that fine, everyone can share information, you can break the news, you can write, but there is to it so much behind the journalism, or even in front journalism, that you cannot do, that requires a professional journalist to have that kind of lens, you know, the research bit of it. And this is why I come in to say that in the entire media fraternity, when you're looking at a journalist, we always pinpoint out to the most stressing department in media, that is the newsroom. So these are the people we're looking at, journalists and reporters who do research and try to use a few minutes or seconds to tell a bigger story. And other things are as well catered for in production and so forth, where public relations, marketing, and etc. So media is, you know, is a broad thing. But you find that news has a lot of interest because that 1.5 minute story has a much more bigger impact, because you're dealing with research, facts, checking, accountability, and many other things, which is not a replica in maybe production, where you have a live event, it's a public relations event, or it is an awareness campaign and something like that.
It's always a national event. You're just covering and you just what so and so said, showing people exactly, taking them to the scene, basically.
Yeah, true.
Yes, well, that also means that you have a lot of presenters who are not journalists.
But let me even give you an example.
Because you might have, I know now there I'm opening a can of worms, but I'll give you first.
But do you also realize that even when you're at an event, Kirabo, you're the one speaking, you're the one making news, you'll still go home, switch on TV to see what you've said. Because that journalist is going to put sense in what you said. You might have written your, you know, your speech and so forth, but you're like, but what did I say? Because this journalist is going to connect your speech to what you've said in the past, to relate it to the current event and situation, to bring about a specific direction of point. So that's what shows you that a journalist is someone very important in society. Just give respect to that person who sits in a certain place for 10 hours and he zeroes down that into just 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes. It doesn't come lightly. That is the art that of professionalism that is attached to the profession. It's not entirely I'm also a journalist, so we also need to appreciate that fact. You know, It really hasn't.
So basically, those are people that the theme is looking at today, journalism under digital siege, where we see that the professional, the traditional that Ivan is talking about, of late, it has been under threat. Let me use that word, not even attack, under threat by the social media that is running like a bushfire. Every day a new app is developed. People are not trained, people are not conscious, people do not factor in anything to do with ethics or integrity because they didn't have this training. Now, Ivan, having given us that journalist, for me I always proudly say we are the fourth estate.
Yeah.
Because I know when the presidents, when the kings, when the all of them sat and discussed, they asked themselves, now what we have discussed, who is going to communicate it out there? And none of them had the skills. So they said, there must be someone who communicates what we've discussed. And there comes in the fourth estate. If you look at the arms of government, yes, they could be traditionally three, but there's this person,
the informal one,
that makes sure you get to know. That is why, to take you back, when we had the times of COVID-19, His Excellency and the technical team he had from Ministry of Health would sit, discuss, come up with resolutions. But the question was, now, how do we get this out there? His Excellency would ensure all TV stations, all radio stations, when he was speaking, he had to appear on those stations. Because had he not come to the fourth estate, then the public maybe would not have known, and indeed they wouldn't have known. So that is how important this is, and sometimes we add on the pen is mightier than the sword and all that. But let's get to the theme of the day. Do you see journalism under digital siege today?
I think if you don't really do anything about it, then most probably journalists are going to be swallowed into the confusion of the digital uprising. You find that gone are the days when media would set the agenda. Kirabo, you'd come here at UBC and say, you know, today we are discussing this. But today, as you're trying to discuss your agenda, social media is also blowing its own agenda. So you find that you split the audience now. There is that is busy going on Twitter, Facebook, and so forth, trying to follow a certain agenda, and they are not onto the mainstream media. And now the aspect of, we have to appreciate the fact that modernization is coming up and technology is developing. You find that a few people now appreciate to have television sets. Even where people have television sets at home, I want you to know, even the kids there are now watching international cartoon networks. They no longer so much watch local content. That's why, if anyone could correct me, but at least for the time I've monitored many homesteads, the kids are so much into other things that do not have to do with local media. So this alone is a problem of its own. Gone are the days when you have to rush home to switch on TV to know what is happening. Today you have a phone and you have a variety of issues. So now what happens is that because social media has broken a story and you're in mainstream media, you also pushed to break a story which you do not yet have ground facts on it. But people are looking at you as a genuine mainstream media person, that if a person from UBC tweets, they'll be like, now it's true, since this journalist has talked about it, though it has been on social media. But if the fallacy starts from a genuine journalist, from his account or something like that, then it means by the time it reaches social media, they will say all of them are the same. And that's the pressure we're having today. The journalists want to break stories to compete with social media, you know, excited guys. You know, they just share anything and something like that. So not until journalists try to dress up their profession to defend it, then absolutely we shall do something really kind of very good. For example, if someone released a video on social media and there is a journalist, you sit back and say, okay, you look at that video, you analyze it, then you come up with a report. That video that has been circulating, this is what I found. So you give it a professional touch, and that's what will differentiate you from the other people who are sharing it. They'll be like, okay, so it means every time you will become, I've seen it in international media, they become experts into certain fields, that someone will have to call you Kirabo. That Kirabo, I've seen this, how true is it? Because they have that trust in you, as a journalist. You're not part of the bandwagon. It is now social media setting agenda for the mainstream media. It is no longer vice versa.
Let's look at one of the elements of news that is away from accuracy. It has to be timely. Now, professional journalists take time to research. They take time to consult, to give you a full packaged story that is researched, balanced, and also accurate. Even look for credible sources. This digital media doesn't do that. I remember one time there was a story on all over social media that LD, you remember that time in Natete they had shot and killed 5 people. It was all over everywhere. But you see that the traditional media also was forced to have something. Someone would say, so how do we balance this threat of ensuring that we have timely, accurate, well-researched stories, yet social media is breaking? I see a lot of breaking news, then after, in some, you find a column there apologizing or stating facts right.
You see, I appreciate that. That's a very good observation, but there are certain things I never want to mix. When you're talking about time and accuracy, the things should not compete. You can have accuracy if you are witnessing a certain event and you're a senior journalist. You say, I've witnessed that someone has been knocked just in front of me and he has died on spot. But it may not be accurate, not until the person may be taken to hospital and they find out that
because in journalism, you know, the one who confirms death.
That is it. So what if they find out that that person is still alive in hospital, but you had reported that the person has died? So it is timely, and you're not sure of the accuracy because it is not part of you to either to declare that someone has died. So talk about investigations. Investigations can take even 2 years, 6 months. Should you say it is not timely? It is an investigation that brings about all the facts and accuracy. So the fact that it airs on the right time, it is timely. So let's not look at time as the immediate release of information. That's where we would go wrong. But the other aspect we should consider, that these social media applications are now paying. So the quicker you are, the more likes, retweets, shares you get, the money you get. That's also an element. But this gives us a challenge as Uganda, as a country, that how are we strategically positioning ourselves to ensure that we guide these international platforms that are giving Ugandans platform to share any information they want. That's why we need to look at. I remember in I think when Godfrey Mtabazi was still the executive director of UCC, he envisaged that in the 5 years to come plus, we would have an engine in Uganda that would be specifically for Uganda, but we have never realized that, and even he left office, and I think that as well had to die. So right now we are playing around the laws of Uganda and the terms and conditions of these applications. Look at Facebook and Twitter and so forth. So I think generally we have to be cognizant that this pressure is going to land us into trouble. As journalists, we shall reach a time where they cannot differentiate between a journalist and maybe a social media person who has a live link. Someone just does a live, maybe to talk about nudity or something like that. Because most of the content, even on my page, I'm shocked that every time I reload my Twitter account, it has content to do with sex and and then I'm like, what exactly is this? So we are totally, we have to reorganize ourselves as journalists, and I think the only way to counter that digital siege, one is, let's not rush. Let's try to dress the stories. Social media feels we have blown it all, and you surprise them with a complete report, even if it's 3 minutes. Now that is the journalism go to away from the timely thing. And the other convention, the way to go is live links. That's the other way to go. Because we have left that time where you have to gather news, come and sit and then report later. You need to be in the field to relay those events live. That's where we are supposed to go. Because if you don't, social media is going to blow you up. You're a mainstream journalist, you are covering a riot, but there are bloggers with 100 smartphones and they are covering the event live, but a mainstream media person, you're not covering it live.
You wait for the time of
you
news.
wait for the time of news
to come and with a conclusive report.
So
yes.
I think now, if a blogger and a journalist all have smartphones in the field, the touch of observing, the keenness and everything totally changes because you have a professional touch. You know where to stand, you know what to report, you know what is authentic and what is not authentic. You can clarify, you can identify people to interview. Not someone who come and say, so tell us what is happening, but you're seeing what is happening. But journalists know this art. So that's where we are going. We need to move alongside social media or digital platforms as mainstream journalists. But if we do not, then most probably we shall always try to defend the wrongs that are being
by the
digital platforms. And that's why we shall go wrong. That every time
Ivan, that was said regarding the theme of the day. Now I also want us to look at the other aspect why this day was specifically set aside or gazetted by United Nations. That is press freedom. Like I earlier said, we are lucky because when you look at the war in Ukraine, a number of journalists have lost their lives. Some countries you'll find, India, a number of countries on Africa here, Nigeria, where many journalists are losing their lives. Go to countries like Colombia. Find many because they're exposing these drug cartels, they're being killed. Others, they're looking at people in these deals. Investigative journalism becomes a problem in some countries. Now, let's come to Uganda, freedom of the press. We have laws that protect us. We've had some journalists going to the extreme, you know. I always look at two things. No story is worth your life, and also you should not run a story that jeopardize national security, because when we are all taken, there are those that have placed themselves in harm's way. That also you, a fellow journalist, you look and say, but I think you went to the extreme. Many have been injured, and the police will rightly tell you, but we told them, cover from this place. Take from this side. They said for us, we want there. And they were in harm's way. You couldn't differentiate enemy and all this. Let's look at press freedom in Uganda. What is your assessment?
I think generally, Kirabo, when you say that no story is worth your life, you're not supposed to cross a certain line and so forth. You see, if something happens in broad daylight and you report about it, however bad, however, you know, uncomfortable it makes those accountable to be, for as long as it is in the open, you can't say the journalist went overboard. It happened like during the day, and I'm just painting a face on it. Maybe if you say going overboard, that you go behind and you start unearthing certain things. That is investigation journalism. And this is where now we should even put the focus, because where we are headed, it is that type of journalism that will still stand to bring real accountability, apart from this fallacy of every day, so and so says and so forth. It will be investigation journalism trying to dig deeper into things that it is the role of the state to protect such people. It's unfortunate that in Uganda it's really very hard, because it is only in Uganda where you see investigation journalists. They are very comfortable on social media. I'm an investigation journalist. Even if you did a story that annoys people, you're still in the open. But when you go to other countries, you can even be in a newsroom when you don't even know that journalist who is working with you, but is doing reports. You've never seen them. So that is the level at which journalism is much more respected. You know, your identity is hidden in that regard. Have we reached that point as a country in Uganda? I don't think so. But regardless, when you talk of the freedom in Uganda, I think there are certain times journalists speak certain things and they are mistaken to be activists in that kind of sort. And this is where I come in, that Kirabo, why should it be that I do not have a fundamental right to opinion as a journalist? Is it because I have media professional ethics and standards I have to follow? You're affected by the price fuel. Do you only have to report about the price fuel? That so and so says they can no longer buy food, but you have a family, you're a journalist. Can't you have an opinion to say, government, do something about the price fuel? Should that right be taken away from you? So I think we need to be considerate that a journalist is just like any other Ugandan, regardless. But in line of duty, if I'm talking about fuel prices, to report about it, what I've seen on pumps. For example, now, diesel is the same price as petrol. This should be a worrying thing. So if you're reporting about it, shouldn't I also talk about it in case I'm driving a diesel vehicle or something?
Well, that would be okay, Ivan, but I want also, you've brought in this element where journalists have become part of the story, not the storyteller. Where we know we are supposed to be independent, non-partisan, and give balanced stories, unless where maybe some side is not willing. I want you also to comment on this, because there are times when, I remember I was one of the people who really covered, that is the walk to work, as a very young journalist, just from training. But one of the things I saw is those we knew, even their party colors, those we knew, their political stand, and in the line of duty, they would clearly display this. There are those you've talked about, activists, that we know, yes, if he goes, no, he moves away from being a storyteller or giving his opinion to being part of the story. And I think this is where you find these forces clashing, because if they are looking for extremists in that direction, you're going to follow prey. If they're looking for maybe political competitors, you find yourself there. Then you want to hide under the umbrella, I'm a journalist.
Kirabo, it is ethical. This one you quote me. It is ethical to be part of the story, but it is unethical not to declare a conflict of interest if you're deployed to cover a certain story.
Well, here they don't declare.
That's why I'm saying now that is the unethical bit. But I can be news myself in the story I'm doing. I've ever done a story now, HIV, where I myself went, I got this lady, you know, everything. It was me now. Acting as someone who wants to buy a prostitute, and it's me now becoming the news, which is ethical. But the moment you don't declare a conflict of interest, if you're going to cover campaigns, then it becomes unethical. That means once you reach the field, your journalistic touch is going to be compromised. And for that one, anyone who says it, I would totally agree. And that's why the activism comes in. How do you stand in the same vehicle with a certain principle because you're a journalist? You move away from that. You're not supposed to be with them. Even the head of state has a press unit vehicle. It is alone. They do not move in the same vehicle with the principle. So you find that many times that the activism bit of it, it's only that sometimes, Kirabo, there's things that might happen in the country and you feel touched. You remember that journalist the kid they shot during the 2020, the November riots? The journalist who had to put all the gadgets down and carried the kid to the hospital. Unfortunately, the boy died. So if that journalist came out to speak because of that trauma, and this is where we also need that. There are certain journalists we need to talk to put them somewhere and try to talk to them because they go through a lot, you know. So if that journalist came out today and condemned acts of torture and violence, someone may misinterpret her to be an activist. But this is a journalist who tried to save a life. You know, we can be professionals, but humanity takes center stage. If humanity is the only way to do, if I was in the field, it's the only applicable technique, so be it. I would apply humanity and forget about the ethics and principles and so forth if you're supposed to save a life.
You're just reminding me of this prominent journalist who took a picture of a girl who was being eaten by a vulture. And this went global to just show how hunger is killing people in Haiti. By the end of the day, he committed suicide because people criticized that, yes, you gave us that footage, how the situation had gone worse, but you would have saved that girl.
True.
Instead, you wanted to, yes, it had an impact. People came to rescue the situation, but you who reported this story, humanity lacked in that. So there, to some extent, Ivan, I will greatly occur with you. But I think we have this challenge that, much as we're talking about media freedom in Uganda, and for me, I want to say to a greater extent, it is there. However,
it's there. It's there.
However, there is an however, that I feel us, the journalists in this country, as we crave for media freedom, there's one thing that we are lacking, is the ethical bit of it into this. Many times I see in ethics, one thing I see very proper is, from not taking bribes, being accurate. we are lacking an element of patriotism, Ivan. That you talked about if something has happened in broad day, and I'm a journalist, it has happened in broad day. Therefore, I must tell the story. And many times I've seen many say, I'm only a messenger. I'm only painting a picture. But what is the impact of that you're bringing out? Should we as professional journalists look at the fact that, yes, I'm telling a story, I should, or should we look at the impact? Because we've seen countries where genocide has been expedited because of people thinking they're just telling, they're just giving information. So don't blame them, they are giving information.
You see, there are certain things that ethics are not going to tell you as a journalist. Journalism is a circumstantial profession. There is a time you have to make a quick decision in that regard. So however much you're told to be balanced, be accurate and something like that, whatsoever it is. Imagine you have a breaking news story, you have all your facts, you've been on ground, but you need maybe an authority to speak about your story, and either they are not picking their phone calls, they are not replying your emails and so forth. What do? Ethically, you can run the story and you tell the audience, I tried to reach authority ABCD, but they did not pick their phone calls. You can
supposing that story, that 1.5 minute story, could in one way have an impact that could cause death, would you run it?
It depends. Which impact are you talking about?
Say there are two Muslim fractions, maybe, two Muslim fractions that are at loggerheads, and your one story you've seen, maybe one has stabbed the other. And you know that what is happening in case I release this story right now, I'm going to cause havoc. There will either be fights that could result into death. Would you run that story?
That's what I'm saying now. That one is not taught anywhere, but it is humanity. You cover the story, you call police that something is happening here, but you continue doing your work, but you raise police. So that's the journalistic aspect of it. But you just need to know the things as an individual, you know, what takes precedence, you know. That's why there are a lot of interests. There is a story you can cover which is in your interest as an individual. There is a story you would cover which is in the interest of the state. There is a story you would cover which is in the interest of the public. And many times, what might be an interest in the public may not be an interest for the state. And that's where confusion comes in. So if you cannot have a distinction between the two, when should I know that this is in the interest of the state? For example, a corruption scandal at Karuma. People let me give a clear example which I've covered. The vandalization of electric poles at Karuma, that hydropower project. They tell you one pole is worth 300 million Uganda shillings. And the guys who vandalized these electric poles, someone will come and allege that someone just came and plucked out the aluminium stuff. Generally, you would ask yourself, who's that so crazy person who can go to that electric pole and just get something out of it? From where? Where do you sell scrap? From Karuma. How long do you drive to reach a scrap point? And you want to believe that. So if you covered that to give it analysis, would it be in the interest of the state, in the interest of Ugandans, or in your own interest? It may fall in all categories because you're a beneficiary of that electricity in the first place. The public is also a beneficiary to it because they pay taxes, and they tell you the people we have arrested cannot even raise 20,000. But the penalties are in billions and billions of money. So until we realize that difference with the help of the state, sometimes the state needs to understand also that there is a certain story, you might see it as a bad one, but when you bring it forth, I would give an example of Solomon Selwanja, the story did, stealing from the sick. You saw that it really brought out something that we didn't know. We are always complaining about drugs and drugs, but you realized how the business was being done. So, was it in the interest of the state? Maybe the state knew, but there are some people in the state who didn't know. So after looking at it, they were like, what? This is what happens. Let's take action. That's why you need to protect these journalists, mostly the journalists who go an extra effort to show that this is a problem. And lastly, journalism is not doing public relations. Journalism is checking public relations. These are different things. No journalist is going to defend your shoddy work, but they will report about your work. And I hear people alleging that, why don't you do a story to show the positive things? Why do you only show? The negative. You know, when you're in class and they told you when man bites dog,
it's news.
It's
when
news.
Dog bites
when
man,
dog
it's
bites
not news.
man, it's not news. So as we are looking at the journalistic...
But don't you think we should also move at constructive journalism? I think, yes, this we've done. Holding accountable people and all this, we've done. But and traditionally, like you said, in all media schools, well, there is that they'll tell you what makes news. You have the inverted pyramid and all that. Good. But don't you think that sometimes you need to have this objectivity?
I will answer you in form of a question. Do you know why in every institution all over, they advertise public relations people? You have head of marketing, head of PR, head of corporate affairs. Do you know why they advertise them? And the qualification is journalism and mass communication, or anything related to that, marketing, public relations. It is entirely media. So you as a senior journalist, this is why I say that these are the people who need to be respected, because you can have a lot of spokespersons for an entity, but their aim is to defend the corporate image. But me as a journalist, I am there to check accountability. You're a spokesperson, you're telling me fine, ABCD has happened, but I am saying as a journalist, it shouldn't be that way. It is not that. So these are totally different things. So why do you want me as a journalist to do a role of somebody who's paid in a certain institution? We just need to work together on humanitarian grounds to understand each other. Come and say, Kirabo, chakutabuseko kindly tell us omuliro gwayokyeza gundi. Tubulire. So when you tell me that I feel I'm not convinced, I will tell you.
Then you bring your story, it was an in-house job. Well, Ivan, time is against us. Let me have your final remarks and also tell me how you're going to spend this day.
Apparently, today is our day. World Press Freedom Day, but of course I'll keep on trying to ascertain a few things therein. But of course, COVID-19. For me, I keep wearing my mask. Not until then I feel that I am okay. Not to put it on, then I'll remove it.
And of course, we want to thank government because journalists were one of that priority group that they ensured get vaccinated. I remember moving to some of these queues. Journalists, please, you're among that category. Well, I want to thank you so much, Ivan. It's really been interesting on this day as we celebrate press freedom, but also ensure that we call upon governments to protect these people that tell what has happened, and of course give you an in-depth analysis of what is happening on ground. Happy World Press Freedom Day to all our colleagues there. And of course we know we are under siege by the digital coming in there, but we also urge our brothers, please, if you want to do what we do your best. Have some knowledge of how this runs.
Let them go to school.
Do your best to have some knowledge of how this runs, because at the end of the day we are all taken by many people to think we do the same thing and we have the same training. Interest yourself because your YouTube has given you a lot of money, your whatever platforms have given you money. Invest in knowledge to understand how this runs. Have a lovely day. God bless you.
This is Good Morning Uganda.